Hi, and welcome to The Lamp in the Library. I'm Graeme.
I'm Kim, and this is Cooper.
And today we're going to be talking about the Jeff VanderMeer book, A Peculiar Peril, which is his first foray into YA. So both Kim and I are fans of Jeff VanderMeer's work. He wrote Annihilation, which is part of the Southern Reach trilogy, and Borne, and we recently reviewed Dead Astronauts. We have a link to that below. So I recently read this book, and I'm going to tell you about it.
So Graeme, what did you think of A Peculiar Peril?
So this book is a portal fantasy, much like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, or Alice in Wonderland, for example. And it's the story of 16-year-old Jonathan Lambshead, who inherits a mansion from his grandfather who recently passed away. And this mansion is just full of strange items, including, as it turns out, doorways to other worlds. Mm-hmm. One of the worlds that the doors lead to is a place called Aurora, where magic is real. And through this world, an alternate universe, Aleister Crowley, is trying to conquer an alternate universe, Europe, along with the disembodied head of Napoleon.
Of course.
And then it gets weird from there. The weirdness is dialed up to 11. There are mecha war elephants, a giant earthworm war machine invented by Jules Verne. There are talking animals. There are talking vegetables. There are monsters, giants. It's chock full of humor and clever wordplay. Yeah, it's very weird and fun. Bonkers is a good way to describe this book, A Peculiar Peril. Bonkers. And yet, I don't think it ever cohered in a satisfying way for me. You know, it felt somehow overstuffed. And while I had fun reading it, it was a breezy read. Mm-hmm. It just never came together in a satisfying way. And his other works really did come together in that satisfying way for me, always. But this didn't. And maybe part of the reason for that is that the stakes just never felt high. Because you do spend a lot of time with the bad guy characters in this book, Aleister Crowley and company. And they're shown to be kind of bumbling idiots. And that maybe took some of the weight off of the work. Because you spend about 50% of this book with those characters. And, you know, in his adult fiction, there's always this kind of like unknown and unknowable menace in the background.
Cooper senses it. Keeping
in mind, of course, that this is only the first half of a duology. So, I mean, obviously it's not going to resolve a lot of the story points. But, you know, having said that, my review still stands. It didn't really cohere for me.
Well, I haven't read it because I wasn't sure if I wanted to read it. I'm a fan of Jeff VanderMeer's literary fiction work, but, you know, I just wasn't sure if I wanted to read his dipping his toes into young adult fiction. And then also when I saw the size of it, I was like, I'm not sure. I mean, one of the things I like about Jeff VanderMeer's work is that the storytelling is so tight. And it's interesting that the work that's for adults, even though I suppose if you think of Southern Reach trilogy as a whole, it's big, but each part of it is really not that long. It's interesting that his YA work would be so much longer.
Yeah, and I wonder if this work could have benefited from an editor. But I think part of the reason why this book was written as it is because he had a lot of fun writing it. And it shows, like, it is fun. It is, like, he's just stuffing it full of weird things and fun things. And I imagine it would be quite a lot of fun for the right reader. I think a tween or early teen reader would really appreciate this book, and you know, it's obviously for that age group, and you know, I guess it's no surprise that I didn't really appreciate it as much as I did his adult work. I'm not the primary audience. You know, there's a lot of, you know, humor and wordplay and stuff like that, as I mentioned, and a younger audience would definitely appreciate it.
I'm wondering if you could speak to why you think the work doesn't, transcend that sort of YA classification, because there's, work that can be categorized as YA because it features an adolescent protagonist, but you can think of, some people would argue that Catcher in the Rye can be considered YA, but I mean, most people, they can enjoy that book at any time. I think Madeleine L'Engle's A Wrinkle in Time is a book that's, written with a younger audience in mind in some ways, but also can be picked up at any time to be read and enjoyed. But it sort of sounds like this one is somewhat contained into mostly thinking of an audience that you imagine is a certain age, and you imagine this is what they enjoy.
Yeah, that's the impression I got. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't consider myself an authority on YA. I don't necessarily read a lot. However, this year I have been reading the Earthsea books by Ursula Le Guin, and really, really enjoying them. And these books were definitely targeted to a YA audience, or at least originally conceived as being for a YA audience. But they absolutely transcend that, and I think the Earthsea books are books that can and should be appreciated by people at every stage of life, because they're so full of wisdom. But I think this book, it really is targeted to the younger audience. The humor is aimed at that audience, the wordplay, the kind of fantasy incidents, the fact that it doesn't have the same weight, I guess, in terms of weighty themes or being dark. Like it is, like Aurora in this book is dark. It's a war-torn fantasy landscape. There's constant warfare, but like I said, it just never felt that those stakes were high, and it seemed like he was writing it, because he wanted to write something fun.
Right.
And it is fun, but it just never transcended that kind of YA fantasy portal genre to be something greater. But, having said that, it is only the first half, so...
Are you going to read the next half?
I may. We will see.
Well, I think I'm going to leave that one for you. Not sold to read it at the moment. Thanks so much for tuning in to The Lamp in the Library. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and to subscribe to our channel down below, and hit the bell so you always know when there's a new video.
Keep well.
And keep reading.